Okay, welcome. We're at the 1:30 Commissioner Conference. Agenda looks pretty light, and I understand we don't have any human resource requests. Okay, so we'll delve right into miscellaneous.
A copy of the report.
It is actually a request.
Oh,
Right. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
All right. Kaylee McKay. I am the accounting manager down in the auditor's office. I have a request from Sunnyside Grange. They are requesting $7,725.76. Based on negative economic impact from COVID. They are requesting this out of the ARPA dollars. And I received this request a couple weeks ago. It's right before I went on vacation, so I apologize for the delay. And this is the only information that I did receive. I'm believing that they were in communication maybe with the Castle Rock, Friends of the Castle Rock Library to get the information. And so that's how they were able to submit the request. So I don't have much more than this. If the board does have any questions, I can reach back out. They put on here that they obviously had to shut down during COVID. They weren't able to rent out their building and any of the other normal things that they generated their revenue from, they were not able to do. So that is their justification for the request.
And the request is eligible for the ARPA
Yes,
money?
yes.
Are they, do we know if they're self-supporting now? We're just trying to help them get back on their feet.
Yes, they were able to, once they were able to open their doors and host all of the events like regular and rent out the building, they were able to get back on track. They just had the year where they had to close the doors and receive no revenue for the year.
So they paid down their savings and they're just
Yes.
kind of saying, can you help us get back to square one?
Yeah.
so do we have any other nonprofits like that we've helped out?
Yes, so we helped out the Friends of the Castle Rock Library. We approved to give them up to $1,500. So they provided me their financial statements so I could see the trend and where they did go down during COVID-19. And so we are in works getting their subrecipient agreement done for that. So that is the one that we have approved.
I thought we approved also for the senior center.
Oh, yes, we also did the Castle Rock Senior Center. Yes.
We were talking about the Grange and Rose Valley at one point in time.
Yeah, we were. I don't think we ever did anything
Did that
there.
not?
That's an interesting discussion because the thing about the Grange is it's open to anybody. And it's people coming together and
Yeah.
I think in this case, I have no problem at all saying, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. The Rose Valley Grange has to do with more of the structural problems of the building. And I'm kind of mixed there. I think if we're going to support them, I feel comfortable doing that, but I also know it opens up a precedent. So I'd happy the discussion there on that.
I'm kind of the same vein. I think these Granges, especially in these communities like that, are central points for their gathering points for the population. And I think.
Yeah,
Good
as a
things to keep
Grange,
around.
they're no longer really a Grange in the
Yeah.
old sense of the Grange. They're a community center.
Yeah,
Although traditionally they were a community center too, but it's not people who are full-time farmers and.
Right,
you know,
right,
and-
yeah.
but,
yeah.
definitely.
Well, I
really
think it's a
pushing.
natural transition.
And they try to stay active with the communities. I know they try to be active with their communities
Yeah.
and be part of them. So I don't personally have a problem with this, doing this.
For the
Good.
full amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for the 76 cents. I'd
That's
round
a
it up to
little-
26.
yes. All right, and I will be submitting our ARPA quarterly report at the end of this month. And so once I have all those finalized numbers with the all of the requests coming in for reimbursement from ARPA, I will be back to the board the beginning of May to give you an update on our numbers and where we're at.
Good, because that would be my next question.
Yes. Yep.
Great.
Super.
Thank
All
you.
right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Haley?
So Bird told me you're gonna talk about the meeting over there?
The workshop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. They've all received copies?
Physical copies?
Well, as long as as long as they get them. The workshop with the collaborative actually had some good news. The Corps did their monitoring last summer and came back and said that the flood protection limit is well within the standard provided by Congress, that the area at Lexington that was a little bit of a concern a year ago has gone away, but that there is now an element to watch at the mouth of the Toutle. And of course, the comment was, could that possibly have anything to do with the sediment that came out of Rock Creek that blew out Tower Road? And it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's right, that happened. And of course, Jim Mallett has been sharing with us how much of the sediment has been calving off of the hillside at
Yeah.
Toutle Park. And so all that's going to come out. We can probably watch that go right down the Cowlitz because those are kind of distinctive efforts. But
So sediment after it settles in will actually move during events? Oh, okay.
The experts would probably say unless there is vegetation, it really doesn't settle in. It's
all right.
It's
all right.
subject to liquefaction with as much rain as we have. So
Okay.
Until the sediment gets compacted, which takes quite a while, it's going to depend on the river speed at the time, and that varies all over the place. So if it's going fast enough, it'll take it downstream. If it's going slow enough, it'll deposit. If it's going fast enough, it'll gouge out LT1, takes
Okay.
it more down. So it's ever changing. The thing I find really uncomfortable is that anybody with any knowledge knows that we have a problem. It's a multi-decade problem, and you could spend a lot of time doing these analyses, and I'm not that thoroughly comfortable with them, but I would say you pick a time interval and you have to dredge every 15 years for quite a while. Quite a while probably means you have to dredge it at least 3 times. And
Yeah.
that's on the assumption that you want to keep things navigable for the Cowlitz and the Columbia and keep people's banks from going away.
It almost feels like you just have a dredge in there all the time. You start and work down and then start over and work
It's
down.
just like painting a bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, in other discussions with the Corps, they've talked about their responsibilities under the law. And it is true that they have to maintain navigable rivers. But the determination was made some time ago that north of the Pioneer Bridge, that's the first bridge, upstream is not, quote, navigable. So there's no commercial shipping. So they're involved because Congress gave them a very specific charge to maintain flood protection for the lower Cowlitz. That involved, the sediment retention dam, doing the woody debris structures to slow down, like you said, to slow down the flow, and monitoring. And their last choice is to dredge. That's the most expensive option so far. And it's kind of like, okay, well, we're waiting. We all kind of agree you're going to have to dredge again the Cowlitz at some time. Jim Mallett's made that argument. He'd
Yeah.
like to make an agreement with them to do a little bit of a dredging up to where his project is sited. So it's a matter of trying to work with them and
My kind of other complaint is that this is truly an act of God. It wasn't something where we built in the wrong place. I mean, can you imagine when Mount Rainier lets go? Okay, so there are some things you go through life and you have to assume it's going to be okay. We're not going to be hit by a meteor. Mount Rainier is not going to blow. And when it does, we all should get together and respond as if it were an act of God.
Mhm.
They're treating this thing as if it was just some fabrication of low priority. It's unconscionable.
Well, I mean, it is interesting to listen to folks talk at the collaborative, because we have folks who are exactly taking that long-term perspective. You know, it was only 45 years ago that it happened in geological time. That's
Nothing,
that's only a third of the time between regular intervals of eruptions by Mount St. Helens. It's an active volcano. 150 years is about the average time span. So,
Yeah.
you know, we've got 110 years to go for the next one. But the engineers, of course, they said, here's our solution. and it is kind of interesting. What continues to fascinate me is that their efforts with the sediment retention structure has shown some significant change. And that is the center of the valley is actually built up where it has slowed down. And that's what's creating these little wall creeks along the side, which is going to be helpful for the salmon recovery. And they talked about that. We were concerned that the Corps was going to raise the sediment plane. I think I've talked about that in this meeting before. The other bit of good news from the Corps is they've put it off for a year. And that gives agencies a chance to try to come up with a reasonable adjustment to try to make sure those fish passages are protected. And I think there's enough space there that it may very well be, unless there's a tremendous deluge that is unanticipated. But that was the other really good news. I was worried we were going to cause harm to the fish passage thing. The other news that I've included in the report has to do with fish restoration efforts on the South Fork. There's an agency that's been set up they call it the Lower Columbia Fish Enhancement Group. So they've been assigned a lot of rivers along the way. And up until this point, we've not done watershed projects. We've only done site-specific projects. And it looks like we're using a shotgun to solve the problem. And the South Fork is ideally situated to do it all at once. And the sediment is not nearly as severe as in the North Fork. And so there was some pretty neat excitement, about $30 million over multiple years to apply what they've learned about how to encourage fish production and the creation of spawning passage.
I went over there and listened to it for about 45 minutes, and these fish passages right now, they do transport, right?
Mhm.
Is transport forever, or are they hoping some of this other stuff will?
So the haul and release is another term that they use. That's on the North Fork, and they had one fish collection facility that has deteriorated. The sediment is just really tough. It's like constant sandpaper. So they're rebuilding that, and they've identified historically abundant fish spawning creeks to go into. But until just recently, until these wall creeks have developed, the fry would hit the main fork and die because the sediment's just too big for the baby. So these wall creeks will give them an opportunity to winter over and grow, and that's really critical. And that's a change from when I first got involved with the Fish Recovery Board. Nobody had anything to say about beaver dams and the ponds. And during the time, they've just discovered, whoa, if you have a situation where the beaver create dams, it's porous, so the smaller fish can still swim through it, but the pond gives them that refuge. And it's hugely important to be able to duplicate that where you can. In the main fork, the velocity is still pretty tough at this point. So to answer your question about how long, until we get to the point where the sediment, the debris plug is stable enough to recreate a natural flow out of Spirit Lake, they're going to have to probably continue that whole thing.
Okay.
And who knows how long that will be. The last bit of news I wanted to share with you had to do with the Mount St. Helens Institute's plans for the Coldwater Visitor Center. That was the center that federal government built to handle 3,000 visitors a day. And by 2008, they weren't getting nearly that many, and so they shut it down. It's a beautiful facility. If you've ever been, have you been up there? Have you?
I think I have, but it's been a
Just
long
this
time.
incredible view right into the crater.
The early days.
Early days,
Yeah.
yeah. And their plan is to.
Wait, but you're talking about the Johnston one?
Not the Johnson Ridge, no, the first.
That's the one that has the great view. The other one is down below.
Okay, this is the one that's been shut down at Coldwater Lake.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so it's been shut down. It probably hasn't been open. Like, I don't remember when you moved to the area, but 2008, they shut it down just
Yeah.
because there was a lack of visitors and pretty high maintenance costs to survive the winter. At any rate, the Mount St. Helens Institute has a long-term lease from the federal government to operate out of that facility. They need to raise some money to add housing opportunities, not only cabins for the kids that come in for the outdoor school, but camping and tenting opportunities for the summer months, because institutes in most national parks and monuments do offer educational programs for those who are interested. And they would reopen the food service there as well. So heads and beds always makes me smile, because that's critical for economic growth. And they're still in the planning stage, and they got a $900,000 planning grant from the Cowlitz tribe. And cultural sensitivity, of course, is expected to be part of the Institute's curriculum. So the Cowlitz tribe is helping along. So other than that, if there are any other questions, I've supplied a few more details of things that were discussed. I think I've hit the high points. But if you have any other questions later on, it was one of the best workshops I've been to in a long time. So
I know the Institute was going for the state looking for funds. Do you know if they got any?
Yeah.
Do you know if they?
I haven't heard
anything.
yet. And they're also going to the federal government as well. And philanthropy. I mean, they're kind of headquartered in Clark County. They're tapping into a lot of the philanthropists in Clark County that have traditionally helped. So a long-term project.
The thing that just popped to me, because I sit in on there was a Zoom from Wasack yesterday did you guys sit in on that, or
You did.
on that, wanting to start that and looking for donations?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know when we want to put that on a deal, but we should probably see if that's anything we want to participate in at some point in time.
Yeah. Our
Let's talk about that now.
You want to talk
That's
about
all right
now?
with you.
I'll try and summarize it real quick. Of the money we got back, they're asking if we would donate 1% of that to start this
An institute.
institute within,
Public Lands Institute, I think is what they're called.
It's a
Yeah.
national,
national thing. Their
And it-
goal is 15 million. Our share of 1% would be $2,020, I think
yeah.
it looked at.
Boy, I'm conflicted on the whole thing because, don't laugh at me, according to the Constitution, the feds shouldn't own any land other than whatever's in Washington DC. And I think there's probably good sense for why that is, but let me put that aside. We're not there, we're here. I have trouble when we try to centralize things. And this is yet another organization that speaks for all of us. And they want 15 million, and what they want from us is hardly anything. So it's not, to me, a question of the money. It's a question of, is this the right thing? And I don't, my
And I
gut
think-
says no, but I don't know.
And I think we heard some of that concern yesterday. Listen to that. I heard, others say, I don't know, what do we get out of it? What if it doesn't work? I mean, there seem to be a lot of questions on it. So it is, fortunately or unfortunately, what they're asking from us is small. We're not like Okanagan where they want 120,000, but it's almost like betting on number 7, see if it comes in.
Well, I have
Like
been-
betting on number 7, see if it comes in.
Yeah, yeah.
I shared your concern exactly, because it says, yet one more lobbying effort. I mean, what's with that? From what I've gathered, though, our national organization is kind of being stretched because the majority of the people don't live in rural states or counties. They live in these urban areas.
Yeah.
And so the national organization can't really focus as much as they have been. And they're getting some pushback. They need some other kind of resource to help advocate. It says public lands policy, but that means pretty consistently, get out of our stuff, get out of our affairs. And if you're here, you better work with us instead of fighting with us. I think I shared at one conference I was at. The state and feds were fighting a forest fire in California, and at 5 o'clock, the federal workers left.
Mhm.
Just ridiculous. I mean, the height of that unfeeling, uncaring federal bureaucracy that we're always trying to fight. This would be an agency set up that would focus on, protecting our side of the circle, without
They-
having to have the filter of all the urban counties.
Yeah. They repeated, good point. They repeated time and again that it wasn't a policy branch. It wasn't a lobbying branch. It was a research branch. And someone asked for an example, and do you remember what example was given?
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
It was nothing I could sink my teeth in and say, oh, yeah. Like right now, what you said was a key. The rural counties are left to fend for themselves on a lot of issues, and maybe this is the right seed in general.
I mean, it is kind of interesting. If they were saying this is not a lobbying group, this is a research group,
Yeah.
then we should be able to use the federal dollars on it. But they've made it very clear, we can't use those federal dollars. Why? Because federal dollars can't be used for lobbying. I mean,
Right.
so that is weird.
That
And
is
I'm,
weird.
and I'm okay with that. I have discovered we have a lot more flexibility to lobby than federal and state agencies. At the collaborative, they can't approach Congress. So I have, I've joined in the battle with local officials, so.
At this point, I'd be happy to subordinate to either of you two on the decision. I just don't know.
Yeah, if it, like I said earlier, I think it's in its infant stages and they have this design for it. And if it works like it's designed to, and it helps the rural counties, us giving them 2,000, I can live with that. If they're asking me for 100 or 50 or maybe 30, I'd be going, I don't know. I want to see some results here. But at the current ask, I don't think I have any heartburn with it.
So will they be sending us paperwork on how much our specific amount is?
They already supposedly sent us a
Yeah,
bill.
according to Eric, it's been sent and it was included in our annual dues
Okay.
or whatever to Wasac. They were going to funnel it through Wasac.
Yeah, okay. Then we got I think I have the brochure that has that.
Yeah.
I'll double check on that. And then we can bring it up. Go
Yeah.
ahead and approve the budget line. Guess there's a budget amendment coming up next week.
Yeah.
Okay,
So if you're inclined to do that, I'll go along with that.
okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. All
Got it.
right.
Got it good. I was at, I'll have this discussion with our building planning because we may use something similar. But I was at Woodland Council last night and they've started using, and it's real last 2 to 3 weeks for in their building planning for the permit process. It's called Cloud Permit.
Called what?
Cloud Permit. It's an online software and people can go in and go all the way through the permit process, submit their documents, actually even get the permit, and they can print out and they're ready to go. Even for inspections, typically you'll do an inspection, you call the contractor, say, yeah, it's passed, and the contractor contacts everybody. But this just seems like a really efficient, and we may have something in place. I don't know that, but it intrigued me enough to write it down and have them send me some information on it to just kind of look over how it works. If it could speed up the process. And like I said, they've only been in 2 weeks and they're pretty giddy about it because it's been working pretty slick, but still it's only 2 weeks.
Yeah, we have Tracy on. Maybe she wants to chime in.
Have you ever heard of that?
Not that particular one, but ours is all online. We don't really do paper anymore. So once they submit it to us, we basically send it back to them, the same format they send it to us, so they can print out anything that we
Okay.
send them. As well as our inspectors have that capability in the field as well with our permit
Okay.
system.
So we
Yep.
have a similar software doing it.
Exactly. It's just I think it's just a different branding,
Yeah.
same type
That wa-
idea.
That
Yep.
was all I was really curious about, if we were taking advantage of something. I know there's other softwares out there and
Tracy, while you're on the line,
Yes.
I wanted to share with my colleagues my visit to your office while you were, after you'd already left, pursuing that question about addresses, finding out, well, who do we need to talk to get it resolved?
That's why
They
I'm on
said- they
today.
said
I wanted
answer
to
was-
follow up. Yep.
The answer was, it's been taken care of in the letters in the mail.
And
Which I-
I did go out to 48th Avenue today. I did look at the Clevenger's property. I didn't bother anybody. I just wanted to look for myself to
Mhm.
see why we would send this letter. I did not know the letter had gone out. It's been corrected. I've gotten a hold of Mr. Clevenger and let him know that I could forward him this email and that it's been put back the way that it had started. We are not pursuing this. I don't know why this letter went out. Nothing in development stages, so there's no reason for us to change somebody's address unless there was like a police or fire concern, and we do not have one for this piece of property. So it's all back to the way it was, and I apologize to Mr. Clevenger. So I just wanted to follow up with the board. It's already been taken care of.
Yep. We appreciate, or at least I appreciate that from you, Tracy.
yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
There was, in terms of expediting things, we talked a lot about accepting the engineer stamps. Do you have any update on that you want to share with us?
I don't, other than unless it's something that's going to make their stamp work better for them. We're not challenging a stamp. We have no reason to change a stamp. We should not be touching the stamp. We should just take the stamp for what it is and move the permit process through. So I'm working with my staff right now and relaying that message. I hear the board loud and clear.
And tied with that, because we can't get to all talk together at the same time, is I've wondered about the concept of there's the international code that we go by and maybe the state rules, and anybody with a stamp has to follow all those. But then we have these Cowlitz County codes on there, and I'm scratching my head thinking, that seems very odd to me. So we could speed things up even more if we didn't have that.
We could, some are in place for different reasons. Some of them transpired over the years, but we can start taking a look at those.
If I
that's a bigger
remember
chunk.
correctly, one of the major challenges in developing in Cowlitz County is the potential for landslides. And I'm just imagining after Alderbrook, there was this attempt, we better make sure we've got to double check the engineers, but I'm just guessing. That seems like a huge event that was.
But that has to be in the IBC rules, also in the,
I don't know.
the general planning rules.
You think, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's more in those books than we want in general.
That may be something we talk with that advisory.
We can do that, yep.
Yeah, ask them, look at the county overlays and do they make sense or should they even be there?
Okay,
If
I'll
we
stick that
have,
on my to-do list.
yeah, if we have those groups that we asking to do work for us, we might as well let them do work for us.
I agree. Thank you.
No,
Thanks.
thank you. I appreciate the things you've been working with us on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I see more happiness these days. Along those lines, the Cardai Hill, you've all seen what Doug Jensen sent out. He sent it to me. I copied Kelly, and she
Okay.
she typically will
I haven't
copy
seen it
everything
yet,
out
but
to you.
that's, I haven't seen it yet.
Basically, the question was, there's Clark County, Cowlitz County. What prerogatives or concepts do we have that say, Clark, you can't do this because it impacts us? And Doug was essentially addressing that. And at this point, they're only talking about an overlay, not a permitting for a mine. It's just an overlay of saying what their resources are. And we really don't have any standing at all. So
But we might at the point there's a development.
we might at the point there's a development.
And again, only advisory because we can't make the rules.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if I pulled Doug's note up, it would say something like, it's not really for us to send Clark County a notice about how they're going to do their particular overlays.
Yeah.
That makes me even more unpopular with my district.
Yeah.
Or certain elements in your district.
Yeah.
I also reached out to Doug. I have heard both from Marin and from Mark Bollinger, who is works for a clinic that works for Great Rivers Behavioral Health Organization. And there's a little bit of a concern. They actually provide counselors for dealing with our jail inmates there at the jail, and very valuable service for the jail. And to process their appointments and have their conferences, they have been using office space. Well, turns out the auditors are very curious about where's the payment for the use of that office space. And my question to Doug was, is there a way to adjust whatever agreement we have with that group that the use of that office is in partial compensation for the impact it has on jail operations. And he suggested that there seems to be some ability of some flexibility. in it.
Mhm.
Interestingly, the county doesn't pay for the behavioral health folks to come in. They're delivering Medicaid services, so they get paid through the Medicaid system. So we're not paying them to
They get
provide
paid through what system?
Medicaid,
Oh,
because, you know, the vast majority of the folks don't have the resources. And,
but I thought they were those people are employees of the health agents, the health organization, company with which we contract.
so that is a different funding mechanism. Great Rivers it's their little acronym. You might have seen it is Community Integrated Health Service, CIHS, a weird acronym. But they're not part of that contract, but they're available, particularly if clients that they're working for through Medicaid are in jail and they're doing the treatment. So
And an inmate is still, I thought they were not eligible for Medicaid or Medicare.
So what Mark told me is that if they're CIHS's clients, they'll do it for gratis because they know they'll be out of jail soon. And, you know, that continuity of care is pretty critical. So he says, we're not getting any money, but we're offering the service. So we don't have that. We can't, we can't charge them more because we're not paying or charge them less. So, well, if it's okay with you, I'll continue to pursue, see if we have to come up with any kind of something written for the auditors to say, yes, we're paying attention and it's
Yeah.
worth the service to us.
I've got a lot of trust in the auditor. I am totally lost here as to who bills whom for what.
Well, our auditor's true. State auditor, yes.
Yeah,
So
I didn't say that, did you?
I didn't say anything, did I? Just chuckle.
But whatever we come up with, Doug would probably draft it for us or help us with that.
I think so. yeah.
Make sure
Or
we're-
somebody over there. will.
We stay within the lines.
Yep. Yeah, that is important too. I would like to, if we don't have anything else for miscellaneous, I'd like us to go into executive session to talk about negotiations with Patriot Rail. I think we're at the point where we need to get some questions answered, and should not need more than about five minutes. Unless you want to take more time.
I think Bill Fashing is trying to arrange a meeting of lots of stakeholders for once the session is over in Olympia. So
Mean-
do we have?
Did you
that?
say Bill or did you mean Jeff?
No, I meant Bill Fashing, but I think it's at Jeff's request.
Yeah, Jeff's trying to put it together too. That's true. And I think it's important that we have some answers to some of the questions.
So this is preliminary. to that.
Yes, yes.
Good with that?
Yeah.
All right.
5 minutes?
Why don't you make it 10?
Okay.
I
maybe-
can't imagine 5.
The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes. The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes.
Yes, he was able to. Very long, arduous task. Ed Orcutt stepped in, helped him a great deal. He was this fellow was one of the victims of the Pete Pescador. And that has ramifications for a long time. And currently, he's trying to get his building permit. The building's is largely built. His craftsmanship is superb. The material he uses are superb. Have you been out there?
I have not been out there.
Yeah,
no.
you'll enjoy it. And he's just trying to work out some details with EHU.
And then everything was put on hold during COVID, I suppose.
I'm sorry.
Everything, his development was put on hold during COVID or? was he able to finish?
Yeah, a thing about him, he tried to do everything out of pocket,
Mm.
so it was protracted over
Okay.
time. And so he's largely self-financed until he hit the DNR issue, and then it's been bleeding a lot.
Mm.
But I hate to be the ones that, I mean, this is a guy's dream. It's not up to me to decide anything
Mhm.
Yeah,
that would be destructive.
But hopefully our department's not in the way. That's the
so
other-
he's not coming back?
I think he was going to see Tracy.
Okay,
The current issue, Tracy will issue the permit right now if she got the EHU clearance on the water.
okay,
And there's this thing about, I already sent the data in. No, we haven't received it, you know.
gotcha. Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
I think that does it for me.
There are two Q and As I haven't looked at. What
I
is
think
that?
those are the same comments from before.
Actually, the first question about the library is not unlike the Grange. The libraries have changed a lot, haven't they? Over time, they become community centers rather than libraries.
Well, it seems like the library levy keeps getting defeated at the polls, doesn't it? They keep voting on the library and it barely loses.
I want to say they actually passed the last
Did
one,
the
but
last
it
one? Okay.
was after many, many attempts. Yes.
I'm sorry, I was reading.
I believe their last attempt did pass
The,
Castle Rock
Down in
Library.
Castle Rock
Castle Rock?
Library, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, in Woodland, they've done fundraising and I've been there, but anyhow, I
Yeah.
don't have anything useful to add.
Okay.
Great.
I don't see any other business.
Yep.
We're adjourn this thing and be back tomorrow at 1:30.
Did I have? Just refresh my memory, the sidewalk for the fellow up in Lexington area, the blind fellow.
Hmm.
Did any of us talk to Public Works about that?
I thought I sent something to Mike.
I think you forwarded or I forwarded
Yeah.
it to Mike Moss, but I haven't heard anything
I
back.
haven't heard anything back.
Okay, just,
It's on there.
Okay.
It's on it, on his list.
yeah,
Make a note.
Carolyn says the library failed twice in 2022.
Okay.
Thank you, Carolyn.
I was wrong then. Thank you.
failed twice in 2022.
Oh, it'll run
In the primary again,
again.
persistence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Carolyn.
Sorry, I joined your meeting late and I didn't want to be that person. So even though Kelly was inviting me, I was like, no, staying in the background, didn't want to interrupt. And then you started talking elections and I couldn't help myself. Yes, Castle Rock Library runs every primary and they simultaneously add a resolution for the general election just in case it fails. And it's been failing twice each year for several years now.
How much does it cost them to do that?
You know, because they're running it in primary and generals, their primary costs are rather expensive, but they typically are sharing the cost with so many jurisdictions that in the general election, it isn't very much. I can definitely get figures for you, but
Do you remember or recall what the amount is that they keep asking for?
No, but I can look real quick.
And did the Fort Vancouver, there were issues on the ballot a couple of years ago?
It failed as well.
And that was in Woodland though.
That's
Yeah.
Woodland
Right.
area, yeah.
right.
That's where they were trying to extend the area.
Right.
Let's see. Let's look at their last resolution here. The issue is, it's a very specific levy, even though it's an excess levy, it still requires that supermajority. So they've come pretty darn close. And Rick, you're right. It seemed like they passed because they had a 58% approval, but it does require 60%. Proposition authorizes City of Castle Rock to levy an excess property tax in 2023 for 30 cents per 1,000 of full assessed value. So for a total assessment of 68,496.
68,000.
That was the latest one.
And they're spending 45,000 of that on the ballot.
No, they're not spending anywhere close to that. If they conducted a special election, yes, that would be true, but they are running it in a primary and in general. They're a small jurisdiction. If I had to just throw a figure out there off the top of my head, I'm guessing it's 5,000 and under when they conduct these elections, because they share that cost with much larger jurisdictions.
Because, and this year it'll be the city, the schools, the fire district.
They will already have their council positions up there, so adding one additional measure doesn't cost them. We're talking a couple, less than $1,000 in a year where they already have candidates on the ballot. Yeah.
And just for the public, you have no choice as to how you charge, right? It's all prescriptive.
It absolutely, by law, any cost relating to an election must be attributed to the election and those that are participating.
Yeah. But I was at Woodland City Council last night, and one of the council members, she mentioned that it costs the city $20,000 a year for you, the auditors, just to maintain the voter rolls. Does that sound right? And so
Yeah.
her point was, it's costing you, people need to go out and vote, if they're, because they're being maintained on there at a cost.
All of our costs are billed out, and there's two categories: voter registration. All that cost is borne by the cities and the county. The county has a share in that. And then elections and those that participate in elections. So we call those maintenance costs.
Yeah.
So the junior taxing districts that are in unincorporated areas, we pay their election costs, or do we bill out to
Nope.
each jurisdiction?
Election costs, junior taxing districts do pay unless they don't have any money. I am working on something that I will be presenting to the board. We do have some jurisdictions that have run out of funds and cannot afford to pay their costs. So the county is currently eating those costs. I'm working with legal on how we can help facilitate dissolving those districts.
Are those cemetery districts or?
Woodland Swimming Pool and Rec.
Oh.
Not to, name drop, but they're
Yeah.
not functioning, and they have no money left to pay their bills, and it must be open for election during filing. We must conduct elections, and the county's currently eating their cost.
That's been going on for a while, right?
Yeah, but not long enough in the law to address it. So I have been working with legal on how we remedy this, and unfortunately, it's kind of like a perfect storm. They have to be inoperable for 5 years, meaning they're not conducting any normal business and have been completely inactive for 5 years. Or the state auditor's office must deem them inauditable. And that, I don't know how it got by SAO, but that wasn't the case. So I'm also working with SAO to change them. If we can get them into that unauditable category, I can approach you, the commissioners, with the help of legal to help Woodland Swimming Pool and Rec facilitate the dissolution, because they have a defunct board, 5 commissioners, and I think there's only one that actually signed the oath. The rest chose either not to sign the oath or didn't file for office. So it's just incurring costs senselessly and no money in the coffers.
So if that board passes a resolution dissolving itself,
They
can
can't
we
because
use that a recommendation and dissolve them, or?
well, they can't because they don't have a quorum of the board. They don't even have the number of electeds on their board to make that. That's why I'm going to bring it to you once I have a mechanism to help facilitate that. So if they had a quorum of board members, of actual electeds, I would imagine they would probably take that route, but they don't. So they're, unless something changes, it'll be open for filing this year, like everything else. And maybe people will file for it, but then they don't have any money.
So suppose suppose they were sort of operating and things were sort of normal. Who audits them?
SAO is supposed to audit them, but they weren't on SAO's radar. So I looked back on the formation paperwork. I believe that they were formed in 1989, and they're supposed to register at the time with the state auditor's office, and they didn't. And because we never had them, so I think those districts that maybe aren't aware and they fail to do that, those districts usually get picked up because we act as their treasurer. But with Woodland Swimming Pool and Rec, they always kept their money separate. They never were a part of our treasurer's services. So SAO didn't pick them up. It's been kind of a unique situation.
I
I
know.
think they were beneficiaries of somebody's estate to get a pool built.
And they
Yeah.
did.
That's why
put
they wanted to
things-
keep it straight, right? Or
And
separate.
then there were like, I know I contributed and I'm sure lots of other people contributed. It's a strange situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did run it by the people at one point, and at least in my history, it could have been done previously as well, but in my history, they've done it once and it was voted down to
Mhm.
formally tax and build a swimming pool in Woodland.
And another question we discussed earlier, the mental, the health treatment of inmates in the jail, and the auditor was reported to be unhappy over not being able to find out how we handle offices that we let them use, them
Well,
meaning the health workers.
it's a hot topic amongst counties with the state auditor's office. If you're meaning this auditor, no, I think it's an efficiency. However, you're right. We are running afoul of the state auditor's office if we don't handle this carefully. You know, no good deed goes unpunished, basically. So
Okay, is there anything we need to do or?
I just would make sure, I have been copied on those emails, and I think that you're off to a good start and just making sure that you're running things by legal.
Okay,
All right. That would be a Marin thing. Make sure that she has
and
it
a Doug
taken care of.
Jensen
Yeah,
thing.
through Doug. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No. No, you're fine.
Just call her Susan. Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay. Anything? We'll adjourn this meeting.
All right.
Thank you.